Hi, Leo, and welcome to your March 2024 horoscope. In March, we have way less contacts with Pluto, so hopefully it should feel a little bit lighter than the first 2 months of 2024 felt. But March does also represent the start of eclipse season, so it's also not going to be exactly a walk in the park. But let's get more into what you can expect of the month ahead. On March 3rd, we have Venus in your 7th house, squaring Uranus in your 10th house. All of the love and attention you've been throwing to your partner might be making it really difficult for you in your career. And I could really see this as your attention and your time is going towards your partnership, which is making it difficult for you to keep up with the ups and downs in your career and the time that it's asking from you. And it could likewise work the other way. So all of the unexpected things that your work and your career is throwing your way is making it really difficult for you to come home and be loving with your partner. On March 5th, Mars, who is also in your 7th house, is sextiling and trining the nodes in your 9th and 3rd house. So all of the courageous and scary things that you have been doing with your partner and all of the courageous ways you've been showing up in your partnerships is really building up a sort of new value system, new belief system for yourself, which contains being courageous, not being afraid, showing up with motivation and excitement for life. On March 9th, Mars in your 7th house ends up in the same position Venus was in at the beginning of the month, and it also squares Uranus. So Mars square Uranus can be a bit more of an explosive day because both of these planets can be quite dramatic sometimes. And the way this could play out is that there are unexpected things happening in your workspace, which maybe makes you act out a little bit in your relationships. Or perhaps there's this tug of war between wanting to control things in your relationship, wanting to have power there because you feel this lack of control and power when it comes to your career. So you sort of try to balance it out with your relationships. On March 10th, there's a new moon in Pisces in your 8th house. So for you, this is a new beginning in regards to your vulnerability. And Leo, this can be really beautiful. I really see it as a day that you feel like you can finally open up and truly understand the beauty and the scariness of being vulnerable with other people. And during this new moon, we also have Saturn in the conversation. So it might be a serious new beginning. And this could mean that perhaps you try to add some sort of structure to this vulnerability. It could literally be that every Saturday at 7 p.m., you and your partner have a date set where you sit down and you talk about your relationship in a very raw and honest way. And because Pisces is the sign in your 8th house, I would really encourage you to act from your intuition there. And acting from your intuition, from a feeling of what feels right and what doesn't, will help you find further beauty and love in your relationships. On March 11th, Venus also enters Pisces or your 8th house. So you have a big 8th house party in March, Leo. And we see now that all of the routines that you might have set earlier, you're trying to make them a little bit more beautiful and harmonic and peaceful. So perhaps this routine that you set with your partner to sit down on Saturdays and talk honestly about your relationship, now you bring some snacks along. Or during that date, you light some candles or play some really soft and beautiful music in the background. On March 20th, the sun enters your 9th house or Aries. So this is the beginning of the astrological new year because we're starting with the first sign of the zodiac, which is Aries. So even though you still have a lot of this energy in your 8th house, the sun entering Aries does slowly signal a shift from this quite internal, vulnerability focused month. Slowly it shifts the focus to zooming out and focusing on your values, your belief systems, and what you stand for. On March 21st, Venus finally reaches Saturn in your 8th house and they become conjunct. So even though they're quite different planets, when they become conjunct, they influence each other. Saturn asks you to get a little bit more serious about the beauty that you bring to your relationships. And Venus asks Saturn to bring some beauty and harmony into its structure. So the example that we gave earlier was that you light some candles while you have this serious date with your partner. And Saturn might ask you, is this really the way that we want to approach and bring beauty into our relationship? And Venus might respond by saying, well, no, actually, it's not. Actually, what I want to do is let this energy impact my words more, to talk to my partner in a beautiful, loving way. And Venus might also impact Saturn. So Venus might ask Saturn, like, hey, can we really only be vulnerable and loving with our partner during this 1 hour on Saturdays? And Saturn might say, well, actually, no, that's true. It doesn't have to be that way. And maybe Saturn loosens up a bit and says, well, actually, I can also do it in the mornings before I go to work. On March 23rd, Mars also enters your 8th house. So you might have gotten a lot of insights from the Venus and Saturn conjunction, and as a result, you might now feel quite more motivated and energized to put them into action. And Mars in your 8th house is going to make it a lot easier for you. So you might find yourself being courageous in this vulnerability, really speaking your mind with your partner, even though you're scared about what they might say. On March 24th, we have Venus in your 8th house, sextiling Jupiter in your 10th house. So these are two very beautiful planets in an easy aspect, even though no aspects are easy or difficult. And for you, Leo, I really see this as an opportunity that all of the vulnerability you've had in your partnerships for the last month, that somehow you're able to also let that translate to some vulnerability and openness in your career as well. On March 25th, there's a full moon in Libra in your 3rd house. And because the nodes, the south node and the north node, are about 10 degrees away from the sun and the moon, this means that this full moon is also a partial lunar eclipse. So this is the start of eclipse season. So take notice of anything that's happening on this day because it might be the repeating theme for the upcoming months. And for you specifically, Leo, it's about dropping all of the ways that you talk nicely and sweetly just so you don't disturb others around you, and to live more in line with what you really value, to be courageous, to not be afraid to pursue and say things that others might not like, but that are really aligned with who you are. We close off the month on March 28th with Venus in your 8th house, sextiling Uranus in your 10th house. So there's ups and downs in your career. There's been for quite a while now. So more easy days, more challenging days, days where you think this is going great, and days where you think, oh my goodness, what's happening? And you're closing off the month with feeling a little bit more empowered and feeling like you're able to handle them a little bit better. And this is because of all of the courageous vulnerability that you've been pursuing with your partner is almost like it's making you realize that you're capable of doing difficult things and giving you the strength to also deal with perhaps the more difficult things happening in your career. So overall, Leo, it's time to get vulnerable and time to get honest. And even if you might not have a partner during this time, it could be with your closest friends that you do this with, for example. Overall, I hope you enjoyed this month. It might not be the easiest, but just remember that the lunar nodes and the upcoming eclipse season are really teaching you that you can do scary things. You can be courageous. Thank you for joining me for this horoscope. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to make sure you catch the April horoscope, then make sure you subscribe. I hope to see you again soon.